Thank you for joining the session. This session is about Teams Rooms technical overview, where we'll be focusing on Teams Rooms on Windows versus Android, because the feature set is a bit different. And the same thing actually applies for the licenses. So the Teams Room basic license versus Teams Room Pro license, there are also some differences. So let's dive right in. So let me first introduce myself. My name is Johan Delliman. I'm a Microsoft 365 architect, a Teams architect focusing on telephony and meeting rooms. I'm an MVP for already 18 years. So let's dive into the session. So first of all, we're going to have a little overview about the Teams rooms. Then we're driving into the differences between the Windows and the Android features. Same for the basic versus the Pro license features. And then we'll have like a summary, like one big table where you can decide, okay, this is the right thing for me to do, to choose the right room and the license. So Microsoft Teams rooms. There are many vendors. There are many different types of rooms for you to choose from. There is even a website from Microsoft where you can find all of the different types of rooms. And let's have a quick look at those. So here we have this website where you see there are 101 different Teams rooms, packages, and systems. But the good thing is you can filter here on space, for example, like a huddle room, focus room, or maybe extra large meeting room. The same for brands. Maybe you say, I want a Cisco device or a Jabra, Lenovo, whatever. What type, and so on. So there's lots of rooms to choose from here. So let's talk about Windows versus Android, because they are different operating systems and they also have different feature sets, mainly because Windows already exists for, I believe it goes back into the time frame of Link 2010, which is already, let's say, 15 years. And then we have Android, which came up more and more in the later years. Let's say that's about 5 years, maybe 3 to 5 years. And you see that Windows has more features and it gets the features are getting to Windows usually a bit quicker than to Android, although it's not always the case. But I mean, you manage Windows very differently from managing Android. So let's have a look at the operating systems and all the things that have to do with that. So for Windows, we are in support of Windows 11, IoT Enterprise, or the Windows Enterprise. And the latest Windows update, 24H2, is relatively new from August this year. And if we look at these Windows rooms, basically they are locked down in some sort of kiosk mode, and you have an auto log on. So there's an account that logs into the Teams Rooms account, and it will automatically run the Teams Rooms application. Now, if you look at management, for management, the Windows rooms are only managed in the Teams Rooms Pro portal, no longer in the Teams admin portal, which used to be the case before, but since a few months, all of the devices, all of the Windows devices, whether it's Pro licensed or basic licensed, they are all managed by the Pro portal now. An interesting one to mention for Windows is that we can support Windows Autopilot for Teams rooms. When you want to deploy a very large number of Teams rooms, this is something for you. Now, then, if you look at Android, Android is version 10 up to 15, and it is based on AOSP, which is Android Open Source Project Management. So this is something relatively new from this year, where Microsoft is doing a lot of effort here to replace an older mechanism where we wanted to join Teams rooms to Intune with Device Administrator, which is no longer possible because the Intune does not support this anymore. Now, in contrast with to Windows, the Android devices are fully integrated into the Teams admin center, including for updates and to do actions and stuff, which is not available in the Teams Pro portal yet. So the Teams Pro portal can be used for Android devices, but only for incidents, insights, but not for the real management. And if you look at Android, it is important to understand that enrollment restrictions, conditional access policy, compliance policies can all have effect on Android and deploying Android in your environment. Because usually enterprises already have some sort of policies in place for smartphones, which run on Android. But now we have these Windows rooms that also run on Android. And of course, we could trip on those policies. Now, if you look at Windows support, you see 24H2 is the recommended and supported and runs the latest Teams app version. So just to be clear, Windows 10 has reached end of support since October 14th this year. So you should not use Windows 10 anymore. So Microsoft also has a website where it lists all of the vendors and all of the supported Teams rooms on Windows. It is a very, very long list. It doesn't even fit the slide. But yeah, I mean, this is where you can go to check out all of these devices. Then going to Android. What has Android to do with Microsoft and Android to do with Microsoft Teams? Well, more and more devices are going to Android or are based on Android, like the Teams rooms on Android. Also the Teams panels. So the panels are the devices that you put outside of the meeting rooms where you see whether the meeting room is busy and potentially you can check in to book this room. All of the IP phones are also based on Android. And we used to have Teams displays, which have been end of life this year in September. So they don't work anymore. So again, also for Android, we have this huge list of devices available on the Microsoft website. You can check it out. And then looking at the Android version support dates, you see that most of the Android Teams rooms are either Android 10 up to Android 15. And you see they are supported by Teams until 26 for Android 10. But if you look at the other versions, for example, Android 15, they are supported until 2030. Now, there's also a Microsoft support end date where probably this device will not function anymore. So just keep this in mind. I just included this for completeness because we have to also look at the phones. And if you see the phones here, the lowest Android version is 12, I can see here. So they are quite supported for a bit. And then the Teams displays end of life, but I already mentioned this. So none of the Teams displays are still supported. So they are basically gone and you cannot use them anymore. So let's dive into the feature differences between the rooms on Windows versus the rooms on Android. Now, there is a link where you can find the Microsoft information, but I tried to conclude it into one table here, especially the ones that are a bit different, like not available on both platforms. Where do the platforms differ from each other? And you see most of the stuff in here, you see Windows has more availability than Android on some features. And maybe let's highlight some of the important ones. For example, if you are a organization that has to dial like other VTCs, we talk about SIP H323 dialing, which you can do on Windows. You cannot do this on Android. For example, also digital signage. So if you want to have something shown on the displays of the Teams rooms while you are not in a meeting, then digital signage can help you there for advertising or something. So available on Windows, not available on Android. For example, proxy support, but mainly it is the Pro Management Portal, where you see most of the stuff is available for Windows, but not so much on Android. However, there are certain things that are not available on Windows as well. For example, Microsoft Whiteboard initiate without the Teams meeting from a console. This is maybe a small use case, but this is one of the examples here. And also to mention here, the Teams Admin Center, now it's only for Android, no longer for Windows. So let's also look at the licenses, because there's also a difference there. Yeah, maybe a very important item here is that for user licenses, they are no longer supported. Like before, you could just say, I want to give my room an E3 license, for example, and this user could log into the Teams rooms. This is no longer the case, and also not for Teams shared devices. So just keep this in mind. You will need to have either the Teams Rooms Basic or Teams Room Pro license. So these are the two licenses, and what's the difference between them? Now, for the Teams Rooms Basic, there's a maximum of 25 licenses, and while you don't have to pay for them, so they are free, you can mix them with Teams Room Pro licenses. But if you look closely, it's very clear that there's more capabilities in Teams Rooms Pro licenses, like, for example, Teams Phone, Intune support, the Azure Active Directory Premium Plan 1, which means conditional access and stuff like that. So just know there is a big difference in feature sets here. And I have another table which explains it a bit more and looks more at real features. Like, for example, if you want to have Teams panels outside of your meeting rooms, you will need the Pro license. For example, if you need dual screen support, you will need the Pro license. If you want Microsoft 365 phone system, then you need the Pro license, conditional access policies, and then all of the stuff related to device management in the Pro portal, like you can see here. So it is a long list, but we will dive a bit deeper into that. So this list is basically the same, but it only highlights what are the additional Pro features not listed in the previous table. So this is just for completeness, is the same information. So for you to check out. So how can we choose the right platform and the right license? Now, this next table could be an eyeball table, but I mean, I try to put everything in there, so it is very, or maybe a bit easier for you to choose what is the right platform and license for me. So looking at the platform here, we have Teams Rooms on Windows, we have Teams Rooms on Android, we have the basic license and the Pro license. Now, everything that you see in blue means this is a Windows-only feature. Everything in orange is an Android-only feature. And then we have features that are both on Windows and Android. So even with the basic license, you see that there's a lot of stuff that only works on Teams Rooms on Windows. I'm not saying that probably this is something you absolutely need, but potentially it could be. So again, the SIP dialing, front row, unified background, multiple participants, breakout rooms, proxy support, and then Teams town hall and webinar presenter roles. Now you see the attendee roles are also available on Android, but there are also features not available on Windows here. Meeting controls on touch-enabled front of room displays, which means that you can walk up to the screen and touch on the screen to control this meeting room, which is not available on Windows, although it is available on Surface Hub. Now, if we move to the Teams Pro license, you will see that there is lots of stuff that is available on Android and on Windows, but the list of features on Windows is even more longer. And maybe let's highlight a few of them, like coordinate meetings. If you have like a meeting room and a Surface Hub, you can join them both to one meeting with coordinated meeting join, where the Surface Hub would be the whiteboard and the meeting room would do the audio video hard. This is interesting, but I mean, these are for more complex rooms. Yeah, what else? Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, for example. We have third-party custom room controls. If you want to control your audio-video devices from there. And then digital signage, as we already mentioned. And of course, the full Pro Portal management. And then on the other side, for Android, we see that the Teams Admin Center has the overall device health monitoring and all of the configuration and the settings, which is not available anymore on Teams Rooms on Windows. But yeah, we use the Pro Management Portal here. So I hope this overview helps you, like, makes it easier to decide what type of room do I need, what type of license do I need. So to the conclusion. So let's focus on Teams Rooms on Windows first, where they are probably best suited for the larger rooms. The larger, more complex rooms where could be lots of different peripherals, because it's still Windows, there are more drivers available for Windows than for Android, right? And what I see in practice is that generally these new features on these rooms go to Windows first. It's not always like this, because sometimes Android gets something first, but in general, I would say this is the case. So Windows best for large-scale deployments. Certainly, if you look at autopilot deployments, and then best advanced management experience with the Pro Portal. So Teams Rooms on Android, well, they are great for simplicity, because usually it's like one device in everything in one device, which is easier to manage and it's more cost effective usually. And then the Teams Rooms basic license is limited up to 25 devices. I would say essential meeting experience. The features are there, and then basic security and management. Opposed to, if you look at Teams Room Pro license, then we have advanced security management and monitoring. We have all the premium and all the AI features. And for example, also the dual screens and the premium views on these devices. So thank you for watching this session.